The scene opens with young Sion, impeccably dressed, his face expressionless as he stares down, showing no sign of emotion. The director, a figure of unsettling cheerfulness, leads Sion by the hand, grinning as he remarks that while all the children of Dead Mansion are special, Sion is exceptional, standing above the rest. As they approach the grand, ornate wooden door of the headquarters, two hooded guards, robed in priest-like garments, stand in silent vigilance, their faces hidden. The director's gaze shifts slyly to Sion as he speaks in a tone that drips with a false innocence, telling him that his remarkable talents are the embodiment of what Dead Mansion stands for. His voice lowers to a sinister whisper, declaring Sion their ultimate masterpiece. This proclamation momentarily breaks Sion's stoic demeanor. His eyes widen ever so slightly, betraying a flicker of fear. Once inside, they are confronted with the unsettling sight of a man preparing for work. A long-haired figure, donning surgical gloves amidst an array of tattooing tools. Behind Sion, the director continues his fervent praise, zealously celebrating Sion as the dawn of Dead Mansion's first true masterpiece. The tattoo artist, now fully gloved, is clad in a priest's habit, his body heavily inked from neck to wrist, a cross tattoo etched beneath his left eye. His ears and lip are pierced, and he calmly readies a buzzing tattoo gun, its noise amplifying in the large, echoing chamber. The director places his hands firmly on Sion's shoulders, leaning in with a disturbing mix of encouragement and menace, reminding the boy that he is their greatest creation. He bends down to meet Sion's gaze, pressing him for understanding. Sion's expression tightens, his brow furrowing as he contemplates the needle, his eyes fixated on it with a mix of apprehension and resignation. In the shadows of the hallway, Mari lurks, observing the scene with a scowl of deep resentment. She watches from a distance, her presence unnoticed, as the director's praise rains down on Sion in what should be a moment of triumph, but instead feels like a sinister initiation. Her gaze remains cold, intruding on Sion's unwanted moment of recognition. In the present-day confrontation, Sion stands resolute amid the chaos, the only ones left unscathed being him and Marie. Rachel, battered and injured, screams at Sion, accusing Marie of being behind the entire ordeal. Without even turning to look, Sion acknowledges Rachel's claim, revealing that he already knew the truth. His eyes settle on Mari, who stands smiling, and though he asks for details of what happened, he quickly realizes this isn't the time for words. Determined, he rolls up his sleeve, teeth clenched, declaring that he'll beat the answers out of her first, then ask questions later. Mari giggles, a hand raised to her face, trying to throw Sion off balance by taunting him. She teases him, questioning if he would actually hit a girl, while her hand slips into her pocket to grab a knife. She invokes the name of Hyunho's mother, asking Sion what she would say to his bold statement, aiming to distract Sion long enough to strike like a viper. Her knife flashes toward him in a sudden, deadly attack, hoping the mention of Hyunho's mother would cause him to falter. However, Sion effortlessly dodges the swipe, a retort slipping from his lips, his mind already racing with the thought that Mari's precision is exactly what he expects from a member of Dead Mansion. Mari, her sweet smile vanished, lunges for another strike, this time filled with fury. Sion momentarily is jolted by the thought of whether she's violating the strict rules of Dead Mansion, but he quickly dismisses the thought, focusing on the fight. He ducks her blow and counters with an upward elbow, landing a dull thud against her raised arm. Though she absorbs the hit, blocking it at the last second, she remarks with calm confidence that brute force alone won't be enough to deal with Sion. In a blur of movement, she swiftly wraps her arm around his neck, locking him in a tight grip, and trips him, sending him crashing toward the ground. Sion, stunned, braces himself, his eyes wide with surprise as he asks what kind of technique she just used. It's nothing he's seen before in Dead Mansion. His shock is mirrored by Rachel, who sits frozen, mouth agape, equally astounded by the unfamiliar move. Before Sion can process what has happened, Mari abruptly flees, sprinting from the room at full speed. Rachel, pragmatic as always, yells at Sion to go after her, insisting that Mari is being manipulated by someone else. If they capture her, they can uncover who is pulling the strings behind the scenes. The urgency of her words catches Sion off guard, prompting him to ask what she means by a mastermind. Rachel, exasperated, screams at him to move now and leave the explanations for later. Sion obeys, dashing after Marie, though the moments spent talking have given her a frustrating lead. As he runs, his mind reels from Rachel's revelation, a mastermind behind Marie's actions. What could this mean? Focusing back on his target, his thoughts shift. Whether it's Marie or someone else in the shadows, they know how to break the strict rules of Dead Mansion. This realization fuels Sion, giving him an extra burst of speed. He calls out to Marie, asking her to stop, insisting that he only wants to talk, but she doesn't slow. She barrels through a classroom door, vanishing inside. Sion skids to a halt at the entrance, shouting that she should stop running. Before he can finish, she turns to face him, holding several small chemistry bottles filled with a viscous red liquid. A mask obscures her face, but the wicked grin beneath it is unmistakable. Marie throws the bottles to the floor, the glass shattering on impact. The separated materials instantly react, igniting a volatile chemical explosion. Sion leaps to cover himself, his jacket singed as he narrowly avoids the blast. The acrid smell of chemicals fills the air, sodium and ammonia, he realizes, likely stolen from the science labs. As he moves to cover his mouth with his sleeve, another bottle hurtles toward him, flung with deadly speed. Marie lunges again, this time aiming to knock him unconscious. Sion dodges, but the movement forces him to lower his arm from his face. The toxic fumes hit him instantly, triggering a violent cough. Pain racks his chest, and before he can fully regain composure, Marie slashes at him with her knife. He evades, but the blade still cuts his arm, leaving a deep gash that bleeds profusely. She prepares for another strike, swinging the bottle in her other hand. The bottle slams into Sion's ribs, the sound of cracking bone echoing through the room. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Sion's mind races. He recognizes this room. It's the same place where he fought Dimitri. Marie must have watched the entire battle unfold, and she intentionally lured him here. There's nothing he can use as a weapon now, but in desperation, he lunges for a fallen bookshelf, hoping to find something useful. Marie, anticipating his move, kicks his arm, forcing him to drop the item he had reached for. She sneers, boasting that she has him figured out. In every unfavorable situation, he resorts to using whatever is at hand, just as he had in past fights, with a can of ketchup against Rachel, the syringes against the henchman, or the plaques against Dimitri. She laughs, launching a heavy globe at him with all her might, declaring that improvisation isn't just his skill. The globe crashes into Sion's left arm, reopening the wound on his forearm. As he reels back, shielding his face, small, shattered vials of the earlier concoction are thrown by Marie and explode around him, igniting his jacket. Swiftly, he shrugs it off, tossing it toward the charging Marie. She ducks beneath the flaming cloth, but when she rises, she finds herself alone, surrounded by cabinets, the floor slick with Sion's blood. Yet Sion is nowhere in sight. Her eyes scan the room, finally landing on the trail of blood leading out the door. Sion clutches his arm as blood flows heavily from the deep gash, soaking his sleeve. Pain pulses with every movement, weakening him as he limps forward, his mind racing. He glances at his wounded arm and realizes Marie has been deliberately targeting the same spot, methodically wearing him down. The situation grows increasingly dangerous, not just because of Marie, but because his earlier fight with Dimitri had already drained him. His body, battered and exhausted, is in no condition to fight. Desperation flickers in his eyes as he scans the library, searching for anything to use as a makeshift weapon or even a bandage. A bitter chuckle escapes him. Cleaning tools? They're as good as dead now. The humor is short-lived, though, replaced by the harsh memory of Rachel's cold expression when she found him after all this time. That look haunts him, a reminder of the guilt he carries. He clenches his fists, frustration surging through him. He brought this chaos to the school, to the lives of Hyunho and his mother, and he is responsible for the fallout. His thoughts are interrupted by the soft, rhythmic click of Mari's boots on the library floor, getting closer. Mari's voice echoes through the library, teasing him as she follows the trail of blood. Her tone is light, mocking, as she points out that the blood makes it impossible for him to hide. She giggles, her voice tinged with sadistic delight, wondering aloud if he's even still alive. Sion remains hidden, forcing himself to stay quiet, even as pain throbs through his arm. Mari's taunts turn sharper, and she brings up the title of Greatest Masterpiece, dripping sarcasm as she reflects on how absurd it feels in their current situation. She recalls how the children of Dead Mansion were given titles based on their abilities, but Sion was simply named the Greatest. Her tone grows cutting as she mocks the director's decision. In her eyes, calling Sion the first masterpiece had been a mistake, a careless act that ignored the exceptional qualities of the other children. She remembers her childhood with bitterness, the sting of hearing the director's words still fresh. Naming someone the greatest always seemed absurd to her. The director, she declares coldly, had been far too hasty. Following the trail of blood, Mari lunges toward an aisle, expecting to catch Sion off guard. But she finds only a bloody cloth and a stapler. Her eyes narrow as she kneels to examine the items, suspicion building in her mind. Before she can process it, Sion's voice cuts through the silence. He stands tall behind her, mocking her for talking so much. Mari whirls around, preparing to strike, but her blade is trapped by the spine of a book that Sion hurls at her with his left hand. She immediately notices he's using his left arm without hesitation. Her gaze locks onto his forearm, roughly stapled shut, the flesh mottled with dried blood. Despite the crude treatment, Sion moves as if the pain no longer affects him. His voice slices through the tension, cold and sharp. He tells her she has no right to talk about masterpieces, accusing her of lacking the fundamentals. Without warning, he punches her in the mouth with brutal force, sending her flying backward. Blood splatters from her lips, but before she can be thrown too far, Sion grabs her by the lapels and pulls her forward, halting her momentum. He points to the library's sign, reminding her of the rule, silence. Raising a finger to his lips, he shushes her, commanding her to answer his questions quietly. His grip tightens as he leans in, his gaze piercing and intense. He grabs her cheek, his touch rough, and demands to know if she understands the method to break the three principles. His scowl deepens, his presence looming over her. The weight of his question is heavy with menace, the intimidation in his eyes unmistakable.